Well, good morning, Carl.
Good morning, Brother Lou.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
That's a way to go.
Thanks for having me on today.
Well, thank you for being here. Carl, there's so much we can talk about, but I'm going to throw the ball in your court. What you got on your heart this morning?
Well, a couple of things that are near and dear to my heart, and of course you're the man, so you can change the subject if you want, but I do have some breaking update for you on the Obama fraud case from the Sheriff Arpaio cold case posse and criminal investigation, if you'd like to hear that.
Hey, lay it on us.
Okay, well, I've been keeping you and your audience up to date on it, so I didn't think that you would mind. Just a couple of days ago, Lieutenant Mike Zullo, who is the lead investigator and a dear friend of mine, we speak several times a day. He and I, of course, travel to CPAC 2013 in Washington, D.C. together this year. We also have been on Capitol Hill together speaking to congressmen about this in private meetings. So we stay in touch. He's been on my show several times, but he was called by a very, very important government official. I cannot give the name right now. Everyone in your audience would know this person if I gave the name. But I will give the name of a congressman who called him as well. But this other government official called him and invited him to Washington to hear the evidence that he and Sheriff Arpaio have. So Mike Zullo was in Washington on Capitol Hill Monday, meeting with this government official who heard the entire case, was overwhelmed by it, blown away by it, and is now going to be meeting with a congressman who has expressed interest in moving this forward to a congressional investigation. Now, that congressman's name is Steve Stockman. Steve Stockman is a Republican out of Texas. Steve is pretty famous for being the congressman who filed articles of impeachment on Obama back when Obama was threatening to use executive orders to basically wipe out the Second Amendment. You may remember that controversy.
Right. And
it was Stockman's articles of impeachment that basically backed Obama into a corner and slowed that whole process down. And matter of fact, that whole process kind of fizzled out and went away. So Steve Stockman is a real go-getter. He doesn't care for Obama's politics at all. He is just very concerned about all of the controversies, Benghazi, IRS, the AP scandal, et cetera, et cetera. Some of these that should be impeachable. Some would even argue perhaps worse than an impeachment. But this case, I'm telling you, Lou, let me finish my train of thought here, and then I'll tell you what I was going to tell you. So anyway, he went to Washington. He met with this government official. This government official is now going to be meeting with Steve Stockman. I can't promise your listening audience anything, but it looks like we are closer than ever to finally getting a congressional investigation on this, which is where it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
Now, simultaneous with that happening on Monday, believe it or not, and these two were, some would call them coincidental, but I believe I see the hand of God in this. On the same day, the World Tribune published a front-page article proclaiming, and I don't have the title right in front of me. I could look it up in my computer in a second, but let me paraphrase it. I'll be very close. And it says, "Forensic examination proves it. Obama's birth certificate is fake." And then it says, 100% sure, something like that.
Mm.
This was World Tribune article. It was a lengthy forensic article. They interviewed Mike Zullo in great detail, reported in great detail. As a matter of fact, and this sounds a little self-serving, but it's important for me to say this, they also interviewed me, and that's because I've been so involved in it with Sheriff Arpaio and Mike Zullo, and I'm quoted extensively in there too. But it's a lengthy article. Now, I got an email from the World Tribune yesterday. They said that article is going through the roof in views. They're just blown away by it. It's one of their most popular articles ever. So I'm telling you, Lou, there are millions of people around the United States that are very concerned about this. And for your listeners who have been called birthers and who have been called names and who have been marginalized because they dared to even talk about the possibility that Obama's birth certificate might be fraudulent, they have now been vindicated because Mike Zullo presented his evidence before a group of his peers, hundreds and hundreds of sheriffs and police officers and attorneys and a constitutional attorney and elected officials in St. Charles, Missouri, just a couple of weeks ago at the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers National Association. It's an annual event. He was invited to speak for 1 hour behind closed doors to credentialed law enforcement and elected officials and attorneys only. And that 1 hour meeting turned into a 4-hour meeting at the request of the attendees, and the place was packed. And not a single one of them, Lou, disputed anything that Mike Zullo showed them. He showed them the entire criminal case. They have gone absolutely berserk over it. They are infuriated that government officials, our elected officials in courts, have done nothing about it. And Sheriff Richard Mack, famous for suing President Clinton and winning in federal court, Sheriff Richard Mack is now on the political warpath. He has been on coast-to-coast radio and television talking about what he saw, and he said that he used to mock birthers, but now he is one, et cetera, et cetera. So the point is, Lou, listen, I don't care where he was born at this point. I mean, that's an important point. That goes to the Constitution. The point now, we've got a criminal case on our hand. There's a federal crime that has been committed in and by and around the White House. For some reason, they posted a completely 100% fraudulent, fabricated, forged document on the White House website. It's still there today, proclaiming this to be Obama's official birth record, and it is an absolute fraud. Now, there's only a couple of reasons I could think why somebody would do that, why the President of the United States would feel the need, or his people would feel the need, to put a fraudulent identification document before the world and say, this is me. One of them would be that it's his idea of a sick joke. The problem with that, though, is that if that's what he did, then he or his people committed a felony and a federal crime to pull a joke on the world. Very unbecoming to a president and illegal. The only other reason I can suspect is because he doesn't have a proper birth identification. And Lou, if that is true, then who is the commander-in-chief of the number one superpower? Who is the man that has his finger on the red nuclear button? Who is the man that wheels and deals with foreign governments, who overthrows kings and leaders of other nations, who takes us into war? Who is the man who is single-handedly destroying our economy? Who is the man? We don't know, Lou. We do not know. And up to now, Congress has refused to do their constitutional duty of investigating this man and his identity. Article 20, Section 6 of the Constitution requires that Congress determine the eligibility of the president, the president and the vice president. And they have not done so yet. Now, let me remind you in your audience, in 2008, the Senate held full investigative hearings on John McCain's eligibility and came out with their findings in Senate Resolution 511. If any of your listeners doubt me, just go to the Internet and look up Senate Resolution 511. You'll be amazed at what you find there. They investigated his place of birth. They investigated the citizenship of his parents at the time of his birth, and they eventually ruled that he was eligible to run for president. The controversy was John McCain, of course, was born in the Panama Canal Zone on a military base while his parents were in the military. So that has been done. Congress has done it. The Constitution gives them full authority. They did it just a few years ago, but they have refused to investigate Obama in spite of the fact that when he finally did release a identification document, it has now been proven by a 2-year criminal investigation signed off on in a 40-page affidavit by a forensic document expert who's certified to testify in every court in this land, even before the Supreme Court, in a 300-page document of evidence concerning the fraudulent nature of his birth document. And by the way, this same investigation has also determined that his selective service records are completely fraudulent and fabricated. So, I mean, this is amazing, Lou. This is probably the crime of the century, perhaps the crime of history of the United States. And congressmen refused. Our local congressman won't even talk about it, Lou.
I know.
Won't even talk about it. So, but anyway, as I said, we've got this World Tribune article that came out. We've got Mike Zullo being called to Washington now by congressional members and high-ranking government officials, and it looks like something may be in the works pretty soon. That's what we're praying for. I just want this to be a constitutional republic and not a banana republic, Lou.
Our special guest on the Johnson Ford guest line is called Gallups College pastor of Hickory Hammock Baptist Church down in Milton, and as you can tell, very engaged in what's going on in our country.